Welcome to the Danger Room! So, with the release of X of Swords, we have 4 new Danger Room constructs in Juggernaut, Apocalypse, who's kind of falling over, Mystique, and Sebastian Shaw. And turns out that through my genius alone, I was able to just put all the pieces together, add up their numbers, and it equals exactly 300. There was no collusion on WizKid's part here. This was entirely my doing. Yeah, so just all of the Danger Room constructs in the game right now equal 300 points, which means that we're unlikely to get any future Danger Room constructs. But while we've got them now and they're new and they're fresh and they're fun, we figured we'd take a look at the team, especially with this Apocalypse allowing your Danger Room constructs to gain their error tokens in beneficial ways, not just with hurting yourself. Often is how you end up getting those error tokens. So we'll jump into it real quick. First off, this is a Danger Room team. You are also a robot theme team. So there are 7 characters here. You get +7 to your map roll, and there isn't really like a specific map that these guys are good on. They're just kind of generically good anywhere, though there is a couple maps that look like Danger Rooms that we prefer to use. I think the Reed Richards Indoors one or something like that looks like a Danger Room battle area, so we like to use that one. But all the Danger Rooms have the same ability. They have this Danger Room construct ability. When the character makes an attack, and give them an error token for each 1 in the attack roll, maximum of 3. If they have 2 or less error tokens, characters take a maximum of 1 damage from Apocalypse's attacks, or from the character's attacks, and that character takes a maximum of 1 damage from an opponent's attacks and can't be healed or chosen for Mastermind, Protected, Pulse Wave. So this is a traded ability, so it can't be outwit. Pulse Wave doesn't get past it. Even if you Pulse Wave me with some weird Pulse Wave for 5 damage, I still only take 1. And then also, all Danger Room constructs will have this traded ability, where when they're KO'd, whoever kills them gets some ability for the whole game. These range from not being super impactful to extremely annoying, like this Apocalypse's. So we'll go through the card. So, like I just said, he has a Danger Room ability where until you roll 3 1s, he only deals 1 damage and only takes 1 damage. For some characters, this is good. For some characters, this is annoying. Apocalypse is one of the ones that it's like meh on. You don't really want him to die very fast, but he doesn't do an insane amount of damage. And if he is KO'd by an opposing character for the rest of the game, that character can use the Cosmic Team ability. Your Apocalypse and your Mr. Sinister both have Outwit, so now one of their characters has Willpower and is unable to be Outwit. This can be annoying if your opponent doesn't have a bunch of guys already with Cosmic. If they already have a bunch of guys with Cosmic, then killing Apocalypse doesn't mean anything for them. They also have a bunch of normal stats. Apocalypse himself has the Cosmic Team ability. He starts with Outwit, has a phasing, penetrating psychic blast with an 11 attack for 3 damage, but again, he's probably going to be hit a few times before he gets those error tokens on himself and is able to actually do any meaningful damage back. Though it is nice that he starts at a 3, so you can still hit people who have toughness or an invulnerability or invincible or anything like that. You have to get lucky with some impervious rolls, but that's where the exploit weakness can come in later down the line. The way that this damage replacement works doesn't mean that you are always doing 1 damage. It means that you are doing at most 1 damage. So if you assign 1 damage and they have toughness, you still deal 0 damage. But if you assign 7 damage and they have toughness, you only deal 1 damage. So you do have to keep that in mind with this team. When you get your 3rd error token, you are able to deal your full damage. You're also able to take full damage, so it's a little bit risky sometimes. You have a little bit of control over when you get error tokens with this Apocalypse, but it is just kind of when you roll 1s, and there is no natural probability control on the team, so you will be theme probbing either out of some 1s or into some 1s or keeping some 1s. It depends on where you're at in the game, basically. The Danger Room team is very fun to play. They're not super easy to play extremely optimally. Managing your error tokens when exactly you want to be turned on versus not turned on yet. Once you gain all your error tokens, there's no way to remove them. So this team does require a little bit of forward planning in your games, as well as situational awareness of exactly how in threat any of your characters may be. But Apocalypse has this special trait, which is very, very important. He's one of the newer figures from X of Swords, so that's why we're starting with him, because this trait is very important. At the beginning of your opponent's turn, you may remove one of Apocalypse's rally dice, and he gets the dice anytime an opponent rolls a 6. If you do, you give any friendly character that can use the Danger Room construct trait an error token, and they gain Colossal until your next turn. So this does 2 things. 1, you can choose how your guys get their error tokens. If your opponents roll a 6, you can choose specifically which ones gain their error tokens at the top of your turn. And 2, they gain Colossal. So this is at the beginning of your turn. They gain the Colossal, and that allows them to use the Colossal willpower that succeeds on a 3, 4, 5, or 6 during that turn. So you can use it to give somebody the willpower to take off an extra token when they normally wouldn't be able to, as well as maybe give them that third arrow token so that they're able to deal full damage. Apocalypse is also a flyer. This team does not have leadership, and for a 300-point team without leadership and 7 characters, we need somebody to carry. There is no mass carrier, somebody that can carry multiple people, but we do have a few carriers on the team already, luckily. So Apocalypse is our flying carrier. I like to pair each one of these characters up with another person on the team, and so I like to pair Apocalypse with Mr. Sinister. I like having both of our outwits next to each other. Apocalypse, with his cosmic team ability, is unable to be outwit, so he can outwit somebody's outwit, and then Sinister can outwit like a meaningful ability, which is very useful. Apocalypse also has a really good range, and so does Mr. Sinister with this phasing, teleport, sidestep, stealth, so you can carry him in 8 squares, then Sinister can outwit, sidestep back, or sidestep forward and take an outwit. But that's getting a little too far ahead. Let's look at Mr. Sinister's card. He's got the Danger Room construct. This all says the exact same thing as Apocalypse's. It's just Mr. Sinister instead of Apocalypse for the name. His lessons from the Danger Room is when he is KO'd, that opposing character has protected outwit for the whole game. This is kind of like half of Apocalypse's. They can't be outwit, but they don't get the willpower from cosmic team ability. Now, luckily, when Mr. Sinister drops or when Apocalypse drops, that's one of your outwits, so it doesn't hurt as much, but it's still definitely very annoying. And obviously, you'd rather your opponent only have protected outwit than protected outwit and willpower. So if you have to choose one, having Mr. Sinister drop early is not awful, though it's not ideal. And Apocalypse, again, with that rally token, you kind of want to keep him alive so you can kind of dish out those rally tokens however you want. Looking at the back of Mr. Sinister's card, we see he's only 40 points, but again, he's only going to be taking 1 damage at a time. And this is one of the characters that I like, actually, when they take some damage. He gets a little better. He's got poison in the early game, so when they're running at him and trying to melee him, he can poison them back and then hit them for 1, maybe another 1 damage if he successfully hits. That's nice. And once he takes some damage, he gets out of that invincible click with the penetrating psychic blast and the running shot. He has the special movement ability, and damage goes from 3 to a 4 on those last 2 clicks. He does lose his special damage ability, which has shape change in there, so he does have shape change the whole way through, so he's a little hard to hit. But shape change does not completely ignore the attack, it just makes them attack somebody else. So somebody's probably still getting hit if your opponent has a lot of high attack on their attackers. The special movement here is phasing, teleport, sidestep, stealth, like we said earlier, and the special damage ability is outwit, shape change. So he only has outwit for those first 2 clicks, same like Apocalypse. So if they're both hit and they're both off the outwit clicks, it doesn't matter if Mr. Sinister dies. You don't have any other outwits on the team, so that benefit that they're getting doesn't mean anything. So that's nice. He also has some nice abilities, like we saw in the beginning, on the back of his card. Mr. Sinister is a good all-around piece. The poison comes up when your opponent wants to melee attack him, so if they're aware of that, they're going to try and run at him and hit him, and even if they hit him, they only do 1 damage. He's still on his poison click, then you can poison them back. That's 1 damage, that's fine. Then you can hit them, or outwit a defense and hit them. That's fine. Then you can sidestep away. He has the phasing, so he can move away from an opponent's character without having to roll a breakaway. Very nice indeed. He's not crazy powerful on his own, doesn't have crazy high attack or crazy high damage once he gets his arrow tokens, so I like to keep him as free of arrow tokens as possible, because he kind of does his job basically the whole time. If he's getting close to these back-end clicks and he's got 2 arrow tokens on him, feel free to throw that 3rd one on him. Just be aware that he's probably going to die next turn. This is true for most of our characters. They don't have a whole lot of health because they're balanced around the fact that they only take 1 damage at a time. So yeah, just be aware of that when you're giving out arrow tokens. It's a little risky sometimes, as long as you're trying to protect your guys. Next up, we've got Sebastian Shaw, a new one from the X of Swords pack. Shaw is a robot, he is Hellfire Club, he is a Danger Room construct, exact same thing as before. Can only take 1 damage, can only deal 1 damage. And his lessons from the Danger Room are, when Sebastian Shaw is KO'd by an opposing character this game, when that character is targeted by an attack, the attacker can't positively modify their combat values. So that affects your team, basically. When you're trying to hit them, your attacks are just whatever your number says, basically. Can't positively modify your attack by anything. This is really only going to affect Magneto, who has ranged combat expert. Juggernaut does have Empower on his top clicks, but that's increasing damage, not attack. So Sebastian Shaw is actually kind of okay to die. So I like using him as a tie-up piece. He can run in there, he has leap climb, and as we look at the back of his dial, we can see that he does have his close combat expert, but if he's dead, then he doesn't have close combat expert anymore, so we don't really care about that. He's got super strength if you want to roll some heavy objects in your team, and most importantly, he has the underworld team ability. So let's let him carry any character that shares a keyword with him, which is anybody on the team, And he has Passenger 2, but only to carry characters that share a keyword with him and are lower points. Unfortunately, there's only one character on the team with lower points than him, sitting at 30. He's at 30 points. Our Mystique is at 25 points. So I do like to pair those two together, just because Mystique is a nice tie-up piece. It doesn't really matter if Shaw dies and he can run in there. He has Enhancement if you want to keep him in the backline with Magneto for later, but I like running him in there as a tie-up piece, carrying Mystique around, having Mystique be very annoying. Speaking of which, take a look at Mystique next. This was the breakout piece of the set for non-Danger Room teams. This Mystique piece is a insane tie-up piece. She's got the Danger Room construct, so she can only take 1 damage. Her special lessons from the Danger Room are, when this character is KO'd by an opposing character this game, when that character makes an attack, other characters can't use Shape Change. Now, if you just build your team so that there's nobody else on the team with Shape Change, it doesn't matter if she dies. Now, unfortunately, Mr. Sinister does have Shape Change, his whole dial, so that will affect him. So Mystique is kind of our tie-up piece. She's very hard to hit, but if they do manage to kill her, your Mr. Sinister gets into a little bit of danger. If we look at the back of her dial, she only has 3 clicks of life, but keep in mind she's only taking 1 damage at a time. She has the Brotherhood team ability, so when she makes an attack, if she rolls a 10, 11, or 12, she removes the action token from her. Still counts for your action total for the turn, but she can attack again next turn, which is nice. She's got Plasticity, Precision Strike, Super Senses, Shape Change. That's what's so crazy about this character. She's got Plasticity, so your opponents can't really run away. She's got Precision Strike, so it doesn't matter what their defenses are, she's probably hitting them. She's got Super Senses, so she's hard to hit. She's got a rollout. She's got Shape Change, so she's hard to hit. She's got a rollout. She only has 1 damage, but she can only deal 1 damage. If you can help it, never give Mystique Rally Die. If you can help it, never give Mystique error tokens. I will often find myself probability controlling out of a roll that Mystique has rolled like a 6 and a 1 with, even if she misses, just so she doesn't get the 1. Never give her error tokens off of Apocalypse unless you absolutely have to. But like I said, she only has 1 damage. There's no point in giving her error tokens. She doesn't do more than 1 damage. So yeah, almost never are you going to find yourself in a situation where Mystique wants to have Rally. Almost never are you going to find yourself in a situation where Mystique wants to have error tokens. She's just not meant for it. If you are interested in this figure, there's a bunch of other teams that she can work on as well. Other robot teams or other Brotherhood of Mutants teams. Unfortunately, a lot of these Danger Rooms don't have very wide, expansive keywords, but if you're looking at anything to be put onto a non-Danger Room team, this Mystique is the first one to look at. She is crazy good just on her own. Next up, looking at our main attacker for the team, we've got Magneto. So he is the Danger Room construct ability. He can only take and deal 1 damage. And if he is KO'd by an opposing character for the rest of the game, that character can use energy shield deflections. Now, luckily, Magneto is basically our only range attacker. Mr. Sinister does it a little bit, and Apocalypse does it a little bit at the top of his clicks, but Magneto is our best range attacker by far. If your opponent does manage to kill Magneto, even though they get the energy shield deflections between Juggernaut and Sebastian Shaw and Sabertooth and Mystique all being melee, honestly, oftentimes it doesn't even matter. You can just not range attack that 1 character, beat them up with your melee guys, and keep range attacking the other guys with Apocalypse or Mr. Sinister, depending on if they're still alive or not. I do like to keep Magneto in the back. If we look at the back of his card here, you can see that he has an 8 range with 2 targets. He flies, so he can carry. He's our 3rd carrier. With an 11 speed running shot, so he can move 6 squares before taking a shot with his 12 attack penetrating Psychic Blast. And it's actually 13 because his damage power here is Range Combat Expert with a 4 damage. He only has that on his top 2 clicks. He's very similar to Apocalypse, where he's a little better on the top end, so you don't want him to take any damage until you can get those error tokens on him, and then you just start one-shotting anything in sight. 13 damage attack with penetrating for 5 damage on a 6 movement running shot targeting 2 people. This figure is really good, especially for only 50 points. If this figure didn't say Danger Room Construct, this figure would be a mainstay of competitive play. This figure's numbers are crazy for how many points he is. He does so much damage, but you have to give him those error tokens, and that's where Apocalypse comes in to give him those error tokens. Magneto is the one that I prefer to give my error tokens to off of Apocalypse as soon as possible. Keep him in the back, keep him with one of your other guys that wants to stay in the back line, maybe keep him near Apocalypse, but make sure he's not getting hit as much as you can, and then give him those error tokens as soon as you can and start blasting. He also has a traded Force Blast, and when he does knock back an opposing character, you may choose the direction of the knockback. It's nice to set up a little bit of a kill box because we only have 3 carriers and we only have 3 actions, but we have 7 characters. So one of our guys has to be left back in their starting zone at the very beginning of the game. It's just not something we can really get away from with this team. You're going to move 3 of your guys up, each carrying 1 guy, and somebody's going to be left back at home. That's going to change based on what you're playing against, what abilities your opponents are most likely to abuse when they kill your guys, which guys you kind of want to stay in the back. Unfortunately, the one that we want to stay in the back most often is Apocalypse. He's a flyer, so he's one of our carriers. So if we leave him in the back, then we're leaving 2 people in the back, so we kind of have to move him up. Unfortunate, just a little bit about some of the awkwardness about how this team does actually run in play. Just good to be aware of. But with Magneto's controlled Force Blast, we can hit 2 people with the damage, knock them back towards us, and then run in with Juggernaut or Sabertooth or Mystique or Apocalypse or anybody that we want. Just get in there and blow them up. That's the goal with Magneto. With Magneto, I do like to have him paired with Sabertooth. Sabertooth has the same normal Danger Room construct thing, can only take 1 damage, can only deal 1 damage, and when he is KO'd by an opposing character, that character can use combat reflexes for the rest of the game. This one is a little bit more hard-hitting than Magneto's. Now, if Magneto has his arrow tokens and he's able to just start blasting people, it's okay that they have combat reflexes because Magneto's going to one-shot them from range. But if Magneto has dropped, this combat reflexes hurt. So you don't really have another good range attacker besides maybe Apocalypse. But he's not as good as Magneto by a long shot. So this combat reflexes is kind of annoying, takes up one of your outwits with Mr. Sinister or Apocalypse. And realistically, the way that you beat Danger Room is you just have one guy go kill them all and become a super god mode with a million abilities. So if that starts happening, it's a little problematic. But Sabertooth is a friend here because he has traded Flurry and Toughness. This Flurry is nice because if we look at the back of his card, we can see that he has Charge with a movement of 12, so he's running 6 squares. He's got a 12 attack Blades, Claws, Fangs, which is nice theoretically. Again, it doesn't matter if we roll a 6, we're only dealing 1 damage. Super Senses, which is nice for rollout, and Battle Fury, which means that we're ignoring shape changes on our opponents and can't be mind controlled. He also has the Brotherhood ability, so if he rolls any of those 10s, 11s, or 12s, he removes an action token. This is where that Flurry comes in. The Flurry, you're making 2 attacks, so that's twice as many attacks that you would normally be making with a character to roll 1s for arrow tokens or to roll 10, 11, 12s for the Brotherhood ability. Sabertooth often doesn't have a whole lot of tokens on him because of this, if you can get him into range and attacking. And once he gets those arrow tokens on him, that 12 attack of Blades does end up hurting quite a bit, especially with a Flurry. Charge, Flurry, Blades, one of my favorite combos in the game. Throw some Exploit Weakness on there, baby, we're cooking. Unfortunately, Sabertooth is missing that last part, but with the ability to ignore shape changes, he's able to kind of push through some of the attackers that you normally would be having a bit of a trouble with. Our other good melee piece here is Juggernaut, new from X of Swords, reusing an old model, but honestly, don't mind. This model's dope as hell. I like this model for this Juggernaut a lot. He has the Danger Room construct ability, can only take 1 damage, can only deal 1 damage, and when he's KO'd by an opposing character, for the rest of the game, that character can use Invulnerability. This is potentially more problematic depending on where you're at. A few of our guys have penetrating damage. Magneto has penetrating damage on his range attacks. Apocalypse has penetrating damage on his range attacks at the beginning of his Clix. Sebastian Shaw has penetrating on his melee attacks later on. So half of our team can sometimes ignore this invulnerability. When your opponents get invulnerability, it's just a little more annoying, realistically, than you want to deal with. Sometimes it's not that bad, but depending on who they put it on, if they put it on a nice little utility piece, somebody already has rollouts, then it can stack up in a very annoying way. It makes things a little hard to kill. But Juggernaut is able to run through blocking terrain and has Leap Climb, so he also ignores those elevations. And when he is given a move action after resolutions, he may make a close attack. So he basically has a full range charge with Leap Climb. This is important because he has an 8 range, so he is actually he's the one that I like to keep in base first because he can move up 8 squares and still make an attack. Now, realistically, your opponent's not going to get to you that close, but if they do, if they cross the map on you, he's still able to get in the fight pretty early. We don't have any telekinesis on this team, unfortunately, so we can't fling him forward into the team and then have him run up, but he makes up for it with Quake, Invincible, and Empower. I like running him up next to a Sabertooth or a Sebastian Shaw. Sabertooth with his Flurry will pick up this Empower very nicely, and Sebastian Shaw can also pick up that Empower for doing some meaningful damage once they get their arrow tokens. He has Battle Fury on the back end and Toughness with the Super Strength. So again, if you want to run some heavy objects, you have a couple different Super Strength users here who can pick up those objects and start bashing. Keep in mind that if you do that, you have to wait until they get their 3rd arrow token because the increased damage on a weapon attack is a modification to their damage, so it does not bypass the Danger Room construct's maximum damage of 1. It can let some of your guys hit over an Invincible or an Impervious or Toughness if you really need it, but keep in mind that if you're running around with objects and cracking them on people's skulls while you are still not fully a real character yet, you'll still only be dealing 1 damage and you still break the item. So just keep that in mind if you go for that strategy. Once he loses his special movement ability, Juggernaut here does pick up Flurry. So again, similar to the Sabertooth, he's been making 2 attacks for hitting those Brotherhood rolls or hitting the Danger Room error token condition. Overall, this is a very fun, casual team. I will stress that this team is very casual because if your opponent's running one big guy, dealing 1 damage at a time doesn't really get you anywhere. They'll eventually kill you and then you kind of fall over. If your opponent's running a more competitively minded team, they'll just stack their guys with all the passives that you're giving them, and then they're even better than they were before. They were already probably better than you. But this is a very fun, casual team at exactly 300 points for all of the Danger Room constructs. You're a full theme team, so you don't have to worry about that. You're exactly 300. Don't have to worry about maximizing any items or anything like that. Just have to worry about your movement and your placement and your error tokens. There is still a lot going on with this team, so even though it looks very simple on the surface, once you actually get into game, there's a lot of challenging decisions that you must make about when to give the error tokens, where to give the error tokens, when to move certain characters. How to manage how much damage you're taking and dealing is very different with this team than with most other teams in Heroclix. With all that being said, I highly recommend the Danger Room team to anybody who's been able to pick up any of them. Almost all of these pieces are pretty low rarity, with the exception of Mr. Sinister being a super rare and a couple of these other guys being rares. These three over here are uncommons, so if you had opened any of the X-Men Dark Phoenix saga or any X of Swords, I'm sure you've seen a couple of these characters. And with that, we hope to see you guys next week with another team breakdown.